a special guest today, all the way from Chicago, Toby. He currently works as a data consultant, but has held previous roles within data, coming from a pretty untraditional background as well, actually in recruiting. So welcome, Toby. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I have a little bit of work to do after this, so coffee.
Oh, you still you still got more work to do today?
Yeah. I work in a role where I have clients, so I like it. I like having them work done, so when they get up in the morning, they see like a completed slate, when they wake up. So
Got it. Yeah, cool.
Late nights, early mornings.
Yeah, we'll definitely dive a little bit more into like your data consulting role. But just starting, like, how did you get into data to begin with? Like, what's the story behind it? Yeah, your story.
Where do I start? I think the my first taste of it was had to do with like it's not a super popular platform, but it's one that everybody uses, whether you're technical or non-technical. It's with Excel, and just learning VBA code in Excel and learning how to automate some work. But essentially, I got promoted into a role. It was 2 levels higher than where I was, and I was inundated with work. And at the time, I wasn't familiar with Excel, so I rented some books from the library and just dug deep into them and learned all about Excel, and ended up automating 20 hours worth of my work, and went down to like 10, 15 seconds.
Wow, that's crazy.
And so, but yeah, and I didn't know what I just loved being able to create something at the time.
Yeah.
But I did jump straight into it right there. I ended up taking a long route, which I'm sure I'll be able to share a little bit later. But I delved into recruiting for a couple of years before I finally realized what I really wanted to do.
Got it. So your Excel experience, was that before recruiting experience?
That was before recruiting. Again, at the time, I didn't know anything about automation. I didn't know anything about coding. I didn't know anything. My role required that I create dashboards. Well, they were dashboards in Excel. So around that time, that's when I just really didn't know about the industry.
Got it.
I accidentally found out about it.
Got it. But then you just went heads on and became super good at it, basically.
Right? So here's the thing. I've always loved numbers. Like I remember, like my earliest memory of numbers is that I used to be real good at crossword puzzles, and whenever we were assigned to them at school, I used to finish them real fast. And as a challenge, my 3rd grade teacher gave me crossword puzzles with numbers in it. So that kept me from being distracted. That kept me from distracting the other students when I was doing my work. So that kept me busy, but I just grew a love searching for numbers and having to circle them or cross them out in like this little maze crossword puzzle. So search and find, I should say. But yeah, ever since then, I've always loved numbers. I used to remember numbers and create different stories behind numbers. I had to remember a number today, and I broke the numbers into two groups in order to remember both of those. So it's always been with me. I just didn't know the industry existed.
Got it. That makes sense. And that's pretty cool though. Like it sounds like from that, like you're some Fibonacci guru or something. Like you know the Fibonacci number. Do you know the Fibonacci numbers? Like
I'm gonna have to Google a lot when I'm talking to you.
Well,
tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, anyways, but then how did you knew Excel? You started doing this VBA stuff, right? But what got you into recruiting then? Like what was that?
So I was reading textbooks one day, and that's what you do. You have free time, I guess. But I was reading this HR textbook, and one thing that it wasn't just HR, it's other textbooks, but the one that I grew to really like was this HR Human Resources textbook. And one of the quotes from the book is not the direct quote, but the gist of it says something about those who have those who can acquire the best talent ended up winning like the war of talent or something along those lines. And I was like, wow, that really hit me. So I started researching HR firms, and I came across this one HR firm, and like I did a ton of research for the interviews. I came prepared with a suit and tie, and I was just really motivated. I told myself I wasn't gonna walk out the door without the job. So a couple of interviews later, I ended up securing the role.
Got it. So then was that first role at that recruiting firm just like a sales recruiter, or you're looking to fill in positions, or like what was like the first role you did there?
Yeah. So the first role I did for about 3 months, and it was a high volume recruiter role. So you're finding candidates online with the resumes, and it teaches you, and you have a certain number of people you have to find for a job within a certain day. So it teaches you how to read resumes very fast. So like even today, I still have that skill. Like I can look at your resume and tell within 10 seconds whether you qualify for a role or not.
Yeah.
And so, make a long story short, I was in that role, got promoted into IT recruiter role, and that's when it really hit.
So you were recruiting the people that you ultimately sort of became them, right? Yeah. I remember that's what you like to say it as.
Yeah, absolutely. I was that's you summed it up perfectly.
Got it. So then you did how long did you do that IT recruiter role? Like were there specific positions you were recruiting for?
Oh yes. So I was recruiting architects, engineers, developers, and analysts. And I was recruiting for a really nice IT firm, a global IT firm. And so the talent was all over the globe, primarily in India. And so, I'm sorry. The headquarters, one of the locations I was recruiting for was based out of India. But I was recruiting for roles here in the U.S. But to make a long story short, I had to be able to. I had to research the roles. I was given a certain amount of roles that I recruit for. I had zero experience about technology or IT or anything like that. And so I had to find out. I had to figure it out. And so that's where I started breaking down roles, breaking down responsibilities, breaking down technology, and actually fell in love with like just searching about platforms and different skill sets. And it was a very challenging job. So being new to the role, I had to be able to understand whether somebody has experience in the technology or not. So if I ask you about your skill set, you can tell me about your skill set, and you can throw some terms out there, and nine people out of 10 will probably say, okay, you're good at what you do. But a recruiter is that 10th person that has to listen in between the words or discern whether or not that person has that ability or not. And so in technology, it's not a lot of talent. There was more roles. There were dozens of roles, and I was searching. You have to grow very good at searching and finding people online, because there's not a lot of talent to start off with. In addition to that, it's not a lot of talent that's online at the time. And so I had to find a conference attendee list, and be able to extract emails from there and reach out to people. they're very good at LinkedIn and recruiting and finding people on LinkedIn. And all these skills it comes back to help me. And I think I can share some tips on if anybody is ever looking for someone to network with or to search for specific jobs. Like learning how to create a creative Boolean search, it would go a long way.
Yeah, we should definitely save some time to dive deeper there, because I think some of our viewers, right, like they might be, in the job search right now, could be, right, and they would probably want a lot of this tip or this knowledge that you have, right, that you're able to gain, being on the other side, actually being on both sides, once a recruiter as well as data consultant. That's pretty pretty remarkable. I don't know a lot of folks who are on both sides of the world, so who were,
I would love to meet somebody who was once a recruiter that's now in technology. I've yet to meet someone, but just to be able to share words, share stories, and, maybe create some kind of either organization or some kind of hashtag where we can help people navigate the barrier to entry into this industry. I just sent a text message to an old professor I know. Said, "Is there anybody that's interested in data analytics? I would love to just teach them."
Yep.
So it would be great to meet someone out there.
Yeah, and maybe this platform will allow more people to connect, right? So, So going back to that, it sounds like you were doing a lot of research based on jobs that you needed to fill, right? And you sort of got more interested in those jobs than just the Go ahead.
And you know what? Towards the end of my role, I was told to teach some of the other recruiters, and so I think maybe one out of maybe I think it was under 10, I know, but only one of them had experience with IT. So I had to teach them all this terminology. And just think about it. If you're going for an interview, if you're interviewing for one role, you learn a lot about that company, about that role, about the platforms that role will use. Well, imagine doing that for 10 roles at once and still being able to understand the different environments and the different platforms and the different technology and the terminology. So I had to train other people this, and a lot of them didn't speak technical terms. So I had to break it down to them. And that's the skill that I still have today. I think there should be a role specifically for data translators, people who can talk about data analytics without using any jargon. And so I created analogies to teach these new recruiters, and they picked up on it really quickly. And I really enjoy teaching and training other people. And but I was just telling them about if you were to build a house, you need an architect to build the foundation and the structure, right? And then an engineer will come and make sure that all the proper tools are there and ready to be used. Everything is sourced correctly for the developers to begin to build the house, right? And sometimes the developers they would do some of the cosmetic things depending on the type of developer, but most of the times the analysts that will beautify the house. And so I would say different things like this in order to help them understand a software and how you will go about understanding how a specific role could carry out the development of a software. And so I would create different analogies and things like that in order to help train the recruiters. And even today, I'm still trying to find ways to help my colleagues, understand hey, I'm here for you. I'm here to support you. I just want to help you. So if there's anything I can do, let me, to teach you, to share with you, to share my knowledge with you, just let me know,
Yeah. No, I mean, actually, that's a really interesting way to think of it. Like just coming from that mindset, like, oh yeah, what does an analyst do, right? Like giving that analogy, what does a data engineer do, right? What does a data scientist do? What is, like what is the product manager playing the role here, right? Like even, I mean, that's pretty, yeah, like that's pretty good, like what you were just saying. Yeah, so what was the role that, what was the first data role then you took on after the IT recruiting?
Okay, so while I was still an IT recruiter,
Mm-hmm.
I came full circle and started learning VBA again. And so I worked at a very large organization, and there was a department head who had people doing things manually in Excel, and so I was challenged with automating that, and I took it by the horns and ended up automating. I don't remember the exact number of hours, but it was per manager, and there was many managers that didn't have to do this manual job. It was a fillable form in Excel where the VBA did things behind the scenes. So it went from manually inputting hours and prone to user error to this automated drop down list, fully functionable form that they used throughout that country. So it was a blessing that I had the opportunity because the word got around. I always went around helping other people with Excel. I became very good at it. And then I found Tableau. When I found Tableau, my mind, it's like a video game to me. I really enjoy Tableau, and I became an advocate for it. And I kept every opportunity I had to tell a superior or executive about it. I ran with it. So someone tapped me on my shoulder and said, "Hey, we want to migrate from Excel dashboards to Tableau. Do you want to be on the team?" I said, "Yes." And somebody once told me that there's no decision important enough to not sleep on it first. Well, I didn't sleep on this decision. I went straight for it, and that was my very first opportunity. I was a visual analyst creating dashboards in Tableau.
Awesome. Yeah, I felt like that. Even you sharing that story is pretty empowering, right? Like I think that shows the case, right? Even if you're in a role, right, and you're just passionate about data or you're just passionate about numbers, right, you can make that role into doing more, right? You can make that role, and somehow the work that you do is really good. The word gets around. That's what you perfectly said, right? And you got a new opportunity. They created an opportunity even for you, maybe, right? So that's awesome.
Very well said.
Yeah. Is there so from that did you, I know later on when we met, you were actually transitioning to a different company, right? You went to a different company, but more for so what made you make that decision, maybe?
So actually, I already was at the company because I came to you. I found you on LinkedIn. Remember the Boolean search techniques? So I found you on LinkedIn, and I had this issue with R.
Oh yeah, yep.
I was trying to find. I forget the exact issue, but I was trying to automate something, and I needed to find somebody. So I found you, invited you out to coffee. We started talking, and but yeah, and the rest is history. A couple years later. But yeah, I was in this role. This role gave me an opportunity to work with more powerful tools, and the ability to build something. And that opportunity to build something that really inspired me to make that transition.
Just some audio voice in the background.
Sorry about that.
Yep, no worries. No worries.
But yeah, just really to build something. I feel like I'm the best when I'm like in an entrepreneurial situation to where I have to either build something or build a team, or I'm always inspired by that. That even when playing basketball, it doesn't matter who's on my team. I try to win, try to find out who's good at what, and make sure that they focus only on that in order so that we can win. So this is something I strongly believe in. And,
yeah. So what were you doing in that the new role? Was it any different? Yeah.
So it was similar to where the company was moving from Excel to Tableau, and so we it was a newly formed team, and we were tasked with transforming a rather large department within a very large company onto the platform. And so we had to do everything from transforming the data, consuming the data externally, transforming the data, overseeing the implementation of a Hadoop environment, then consuming the data from that environment, building the dashboards, developing user acceptance testing and personas for the specific type of stakeholder that were consuming the data. And then we had to create the PDFs for how to use the dashboards. And then we went on like a tour, giving different stakeholders a presentation about the product. So that's the part I really like, when you create something and somebody say, wow, like they say something like, I don't have to use the other reports that I use, or their body language changed from, why do I have to be in this meeting, to leaning forward with their eyes, like, wow, like that's what I really, really like.
The getting it to the end user and them realizing that, right? That light bulb moment. Oh, wow, it's a big change. It's for the better.
Yeah, especially if it'll eliminate some time, like automate some time, or they use it day to day. That's what I really like, is not only when they like it, because they can like it and not use it, but when they use it day to day and they depend on it. Yeah, that's what I really like.
Yeah. Cool. And then ultimately now you're doing data consulting, right?
Yes, it's a combination of all my past experiences, learning from my past experiences. I had a mentor and an immediate supervisor, or a indirect supervisor in all my roles. So trying to find them into my current opportunity, taking on experiences into this role, and building something. That's the most important. So in this current role, I have a great leader who is pouring into me and giving me opportunities to step up and become more of a less of a technical person, but more of a person that can interact with business. So that's in my growth plan, and that's what I see my foreseeable future.
Got it. So all the roles that you sort of had and you sort of grew into, a big point that you did point out was having that mentor, right? Having that sort of someone that really fully supports you and what you're doing for, right? I think that's, like you're spot on. That's like really good piece of advice. You definitely want to work with people who support you and want to see you grow, right?
Yeah. In fact, that's what I look for. I had 3 things that I look for every single time I went for a new opportunity. And I strive to get those 3 things. And then if the 4th, 5th, and 6th things are great, then that's icing on the cake. But there's 3 things that I must have, and having a leader that I can turn to and be open with about the breadth of my knowledge. I mean, the extent of my knowledge, like the barrier, so that they can teach me more. And them having the background where I can go to them and understand, learn from them. That's very important. That's one of my top 3.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, maybe we could dive deeper into maybe sharing some advice for the viewers, right? Around I know we were getting to it earlier, right? I would love we would probably love your perspective on, if you're a new sort of someone getting new to the industry in data,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This might be you might be looking for your first role in data, right? What would be your advice? Like, how would you were on the other side of a recruiter, right? Like, sort
Mm-hmm.
of what sticks out, like even on the resume, right? Right? Like, how would you scope people out, right? Like yeah, just general good advice for people to get started on.
Or there, so with COVID and all that's going on this year, it's a lot more challenging than before.
Mm-hmm.
Before you can meet in person, you can go to meetups. I remember inviting you to a meetup before. I met a lot of different people on meetup.com from this industry, but because everything is online, it's much more challenging. And if I can be honest, I haven't had to search for a role in this type of um, non-contact environment.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, so what I would do if I was in a situation is build an online portfolio, or
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the number one thing that makes you stand out, because recruiters look for skills,
Mm-hmm.
and and they look for years of experience, and it's very challenging. We all know it's very challenging to enter this industry. But if you have a skill set and you're very good at it and you're
Mm-hmm.
vocal about it
Mm-hmm.
online, especially LinkedIn, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, that's the very first thing you should do. But in addition to that, you can participate in there's different types of online contests or skill builder events like Makeover Monday or Workout Wednesday, or there's so many different people to follow, and there's so many opportunities online there's so many opportunities to build an online presence that
Mm-hmm.
that should be the very first thing you do in this non-contact environment.
Mm-hmm.
But I if outside of that, one thing that stands true, whether is you doing it online or you doing it in person, is finding somebody within the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Finding somebody within the industry. That's if you don't know anybody within the industry. And as a matter of fact, if I could be completely honest, if I receive a LinkedIn invite and the person has no context in the industry, that says a lot about them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know somebody within the industry. I'm not speaking about somebody that's very high up on the total pole.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking about somebody within the industry that has created a dashboard or has a title that says something similar, that they're using a software within the industry. There's so many opportunities to meet people
Mm-hmm.
that you gotta have some kind of connection within the industry. It builds a element of trust.
Yeah.
So very first thing you meet somebody within the industry, pick and learn what you can from them.
Yeah. Very valuable points there, right? I think, like, when you first get started, like I love your point. Like, you're not going to have a lot of experience, right? This is the first role you're looking for in data. Then
Mm-hmm.
if you have that skill set, right, which you have taken full advantage of, is like you Tableau, right, or Excel, and really demonstrating that to your peers, right, within your network, building that in your LinkedIn profile, right,
Mm-hmm.
showcasing that skill, so a recruiter first, catches their eye, right, sort of what were you getting to there. And your second point, I think people need to stay motivated and make an effort to connect with others, right? If you don't reach out, right, if you don't make that effort to connect, right, it's back to what you were saying, you don't know anyone in the industry, and still people is such a big part to finding a job, probably, right?
Yeah, and it just, if I could just reiterate, recruiters, they are under a lot of pressure. They have to find enough people for certain roles. So they're looking for you. Just make it easier for them to look for you by creating an online profile. And so, yeah, I remember I had this mentor who I wanted to break into the field, and it took him telling me like, look, you're doing it. Like you are, it took him telling me that I am, who there's a saying that sometimes you need somebody else's belief in you until you develop your own.
Mm.
And that's who that mentor was for me. He believed in me, and then over time I developed my own belief. But yeah, that's the very first thing I would suggest doing is, connecting with somebody online.
Got it.
Building a profile and then connect with others online.
Got it. That's great. Yeah. Is there, I guess another question I have, right? I think you spoke, maybe we could dive a little deeper here, maybe from your experience, right? When you, let's say you apply to different data roles, right? That sparks your interest, right? Piques your interest. Maybe on multiple things, maybe the company, right? Maybe the responsibilities or the position, right? And then you start having interviews, right? I would love to talk about how your experience of what a typical sort of interview looks like, the process, for someone just to get started with for these tech and data roles. So
from the recruiter side or from the person that's interviewing?
From the recruiter side.
Okay. From the recruiter side, I'm under a lot of pressure. You have, I can tell within the first couple of moments whether or not how this interview is going to go. So you really don't have that much time to make that first impression. So very first thing I would do is, I don't know if you can still do this or not, but whenever somebody reach out to me to help them with their resume, one of the very first things I do is I go to Indeed.com and I search for the role that you're looking for. I search for that role and look at the resumes of those people. So there's two things you can do on Indeed. You can look for jobs and you can look for resumes. So when I was a recruiter, I think I can email to like 50 people before I have to pay for that for an Indeed license. It may have changed since then, but you can do two things. You can look for jobs and you can look for resumes. So input the job title into Indeed.com and then look at how they're creating the resumes. Because your resume, that's the very first thing that gets you into the interview. You take it from there. So very first thing I do is make sure my resume is up to par, and I spend an extra $1 or $2 to get some really nice paper. I remember one time I went to Office Max or Office Depot. Are those still around? And I bought like a $10 binder. So I walked in the interview with a binder and really nice paper, resume paper, so that when we sit down, I can slide the paper over to you. So as a recruiter, if somebody has a really nice paper and I'm constantly touching that really nice paper and sending signals, it's starting off with a first grade impression. But then from there, just make sure you're interviewing for the role that you want to be there for. Like if you're gonna waste my time, like that's the worst thing you can do. You're wasting your own time too. And so make sure that you know about the role, make sure you know about the company, and make sure you're picky about coming to work for us. Because there's one thing I don't want is just somebody that just want to work for us and have no specific reason. I mean, that one question could eliminate so many people. It's like, why do you want to work here?
Yeah.
And so you just have some kind of compelling reason why you want to come here. It shows how much research you've done. It shows, just how long you're going to be here. It shows like, it just says a lot about you. So.
Got it.
Yeah, just research why you want to be here.
Come prepared.
Yes, absolutely.
Come prepared.
Yes, come prepared.
Come prepared. Got it. Okay. So usually though, like at least from my own experience, it's usually you get on a call, maybe like, 30-minute with the recruiter, right?
Yes.
Let's say everything goes well, right? Then you get to next call, right? To set up with, usually, I don't know, from my experience, either someone on the team, could be the hiring manager. I don't know, it varies from maybe similar from your perspective, you would say? Or
Yeah, so absolutely. So one thing during a recruiter interview, the recruiter doesn't have the technical terms. Don't put pressure on them to answer questions that you can save for the team meeting, team interview, or the HR, the manager interview.
Yeah.
But that recruiter is your friend. You connect with a recruiter. You be on time. You give multiple times and dates so that they can pick one. You make it super easy for them to get you into that first meeting. Because if you follow up with them, send them thank you letters, just something small, something sweet. Because if you don't get the opportunity, there's a high probability that the recruiter will have another opportunity for you in the future. As a matter of fact, if you're on LinkedIn and a recruiter reach out to you, instead of ignoring them or declining the opportunity, you can connect with them, let them know you're not looking for a role right now, but in the future, maybe you are, or I don't know how you feel about that, but there's going to be some time, 5 years, 10 years, or you never know, a month from now, where you may need that recruiter.
Yeah.
And so, that recruiters is a very small space. They know a lot of talent, and so do what you can to put your best foot forward with that recruiter. Okay, they're going to do a very short screen call just to make sure you're okay and that you won't waste the HR manager, the manager's time at round two. So once you get to round two, that's when you come with your questions. That's when you come I explored your profile, explore some of the dashboards that you all have online. I really like this specific dashboard and why. I really like how you all help this one company come into the new data age. I saw your white paper or your one pager on your website. You bring out all the fireworks for the hiring manager, but you also have some questions like, what's your management style?
Yeah.
So tell me about the strongest person on your team, and what makes them so successful.
The connection is a little bit poor. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
The connection. Yeah. Can you just do without the screen for a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's better. Yep. Yeah. Let's continue. So you were saying your last point. Yeah, like the second part is really the making, like, impress the hiring manager, right? Almost like impress, Yeah.
Yeah, it's not necessarily impress. It's like, do you foresee yourself spending the next couple of years being trained by this individual, being led by this individual? Do you two mesh well? Do you connect well? Is there chemistry there? What can this person teach you? These are all questions you want to know. And if you get the opportunity to meet your colleagues, those are the people that you're going to be working alongside. And you really want to get to know them. You want to know their skill sets. You want to be able to know where you fit, like what can you teach, what can they teach you. It's so critical, not just within the field of technology, whichever field you're in, to know who you're going to be spending the next 40 hours a week with over the next X amount of years. So, just come prepared with those type of questions, like, who are you?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great, like, it's always, people tend to not realize that an interview is both ways, right? I've said that so many times. Sometimes this is my perspective, sometimes I really want to work for this company and I think this is my dream job and the whole interview is great, right? But on the other side, the hiring manager or the team, they might think you're good and you're smart and you got the skill, but maybe you're just not the right fit at this time, right? Like, it's totally happens, it totally happens, and then it happens, right? But it's all about fit. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, as you're looking for a job, it's very time consuming. It's very draining. It's a full time job looking for a
Mm,
job.
yeah.
So you don't want to accept every opportunity that come your way. You want to be you want to be selective to the point where you still receive opportunities. You
Mm-hmm.
want to go into opportunities where you're working on the things that you want to work with. You're working with the platforms that you want to work with, and um, you work in an environment that that's conducive to your growth and development, or
Mm-hmm.
and to your health, your overall
Mm-hmm.
health.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just be very thoughtful about your next move and where you want to end up.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I One of the things I look for in this current opportunity I'm in is to work along colleagues who know more than me,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so that I have the opportunity to just turn to them and ask them for help,
Mm-hmm.
uh, instead of going online looking for somebody and say, "Hey, can you help me with this?" I can just turn to my right or to my left
Mm-hmm.
and say, "Hey, can you help me with this coding issue, or
Mm-hmm.
this feature?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm blessed to have the opportunity now.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, maybe uh to close off that, can we talk about what happens? Like, let's say this job, there was a mutual fit, right? The hiring manager and, the interviewer, right, the candidate, they like maybe the hiring manager makes an off, gives an offer to the candidate, right? How does that process sort of look like? Maybe you could speak around that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So having done recruit analytics, there's general steps within the process that a candidate moves through.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a sourcing process where the recruiter finds you or you find them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a recruiter interview. There's the second round interview, which depending on the size of the firm, it may be directly with the hiring manager or it may be with the team.
Mm-hmm.
And then there may be additional rounds from there where it varies. But after the interviewing is done, you move into whether you're declined or offer is extended,
Mm-hmm.
and during that phase, or most importantly, in a technology, in a technical role, you have to do um, some sort of skill assessment,
Yeah.
whether
Mhm.
they're testing your SQL abilities or
Yeah.
the platform that you'll be working on. As a matter of fact, if the organization doesn't test your skill set, run. I mean, I'm sorry because I want to know if I'm hiring somebody, I want to know that you have some kind of skill set that where you can immediately begin to start contributing to the team,
Yeah.
or you have a strong interest, or you have the ability to learn fast. So a
Mhm.
lot of organizations, they will give you a test or a quiz or something, and if you don't know it, it still assesses how quickly you can learn that platform,
Yeah. Yeah.
and your how strong your desire is. But after that, you get to the offer, and then you want to start going through the negotiation,
Mhm.
and then the most important thing is when you accept it, you're able to accept the offer, and then you figure out um, the best way to leave your role on a positive note.
Mhm.
One thing I always done is I kept a data log of everything that I learned and
Mhm.
processes that I either created or that I've gone through, so that upon transition out of my role, I can hand it over to my
Mhm.
colleagues. Like
Mhm.
this is
Yeah.
a huge resource that you can use to help with training the next person, or to it's like a something it's like a online data log, an
Mhm.
online catalog of
Mhm.
different processes and stuff. So I've always kept that. I always wanted to leave on great terms
Yeah.
and still be able to communicate and connect with my previous teams.
Yeah. No,
And it's a small.
yeah.
I would just say this. I would
Go
just say
ahead.
this. This is a small industry. Everybody knows everybody. So if you burn your bridges, it's going to be found out. Like you don't
Mhm.
want. This is a small industry.
Mhm.
You eventually are going to come across each other at like a
Mhm.
conference, or online or something. You don't want to leave a bad taste in anybody's mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. Like I've done the exact same thing. Doing it the right way, right? Always give them a sort of a 2-week notice. And then even that 2 weeks, right? I'm getting everything, documented. I'm like, this is where it is. This is where it is. I'm gonna handle everything here. There's, transition really well, I've taken all my opportunities that way because I feel like either way, like when you go into opportunity, there's something that you learned out of it, right? There's
Yes.
something that you grew out of it, right? So I'm always treat other people like, we're no longer working, but we're gonna bump into each other someday, right? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
So
There's a saying that people remember you from the last time that they've saw you.
mm-hmm.
So 2 years from now, 5 years from now, when you see that person again, that past colleague, they only remember the 2 or 5 year old version of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they're going to talk about when they see you. So you leave
mm-hmm.
a bad taste in their mouth. Like if they even approach you, you want to leave on good terms. And one thing I've always done is I worked in virtual roles, so I wasn't able to do this, but I still pick up the phone. I always want to tell my employer in person. So
mm-hmm.
whether we go on walks or we talk, we discuss, because that's a relationship I still want to have even beyond my time at the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would pick up the phone if it's a virtual role and I talk to the person. But I still do formally. I strongly recommend you still formally send something in writing. But that personal contact that helps to sustain that relationship beyond your time in at that company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, like I definitely share that same approach, and I'm glad the viewers get to hear some of that, right? Because that's so important, right? Because that former connection could be someone that can get you a new job. You don't know that, but it's definitely true, and yeah, it's small, but cool. Is there any other things you might have want to continue to inspire or advice that I left out or anywhere? Yeah.
If there's any lingering questions, I'm totally open to sharing my knowledge, the little bit that I do have, and but yeah, I'm totally open to helping anybody that's passionate about the field that really wants to break into it. Like I was telling you before we started the call, one of my old professors, he was, I texted him the other day and I told him, does he know any students that's interested in data analytics? And I would love to teach them. He said, I'll get back to you. So I'm always open to helping out other people. And I found that the community on LinkedIn, especially, is totally open to doing the same.
Well, after viewers watch this, a lot of people will reach out for your mentorship. So
just make sure that we have some mutual connections within the industry. And I'm totally open to it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's sort of like
personalize the invite too. Personalize the invite. One of the worst things you can do is just click invite. You have to personalize it.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'll just say this one short thing. I attended this data plus this. I may butcher this, so I'm sorry. But it's a data plus women, women in data, or data plus women in data. It's an organization, a very vibrant organization where they highlight women within our field and industry, which is a great initiative. So I attended one of them, and then afterwards, I reached out to some of the speakers, like, wow, I really was inspired by your talk. I really feel the same way, and this is, I would like to stay connected or something like that. Show some kind of point of reference to how I came across them. And 9 times out of 10, the persons accept the invite, and we start an online connection. I start liking their statuses.
Yeah.
I start sharing some of their work, or I start attending some of the conferences, and they do the same for me. Provide clarity about upcoming contests or whatever the case may be. And And you can do that now that everybody's online. You can do this on a global basis. You can attend a meetup group in Paris right now.
Yeah.
And if you're in Paris, you can attend a data conference that's normally here in Chicago.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
now is the best time to connect online, but just make sure that there's a personal invite that shows how you first met me or whoever you connect with.
Yeah, that's another great piece of advice, because I've had so many sort of people just click invite and then I accepted them, but then I never really connect with them or talk with them ever again. So I'm just not really sure like what it really.
Yeah. I hosted this internal game at my current job, in my current company, and one of the questions, it was like we created an app that would randomly select a question, right? And one of the questions was, out of the last 20 people you connected with on LinkedIn, tell us about one person and why you want to connect with them. Like, what do you want to connect with them about? And that's a challenge that anybody can do. You can do the last 20 people you connected with, pick one of them and reach out to them. And whenever you go to your connections, they're always sorted by the most recent connections. So it's very easy to do. Just reach out to one of the last 20 people and connect with them.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Maybe one more thing that's sort of on top of mind might be switching gears just a little bit, but maybe can we talk a little bit about where do you think someone who's trying to learn new things or learn new skills, right? What would be some maybe technologies, right, that they can use or they can learn that you think would be super helpful for them to get that first role? Like
in your first role, no matter what company you work for, no matter where you live on the globe, a lot of people use Excel. You know, depending on the listener, they may not think Excel is a top-notch platform, but business users, technical users, personal at-home users, a lot of people use Excel. So learn Excel, learn pivot tables, learn VLOOKUPs. You know, the technical, the leaning, the transit. That's the portion where you transition from the personal use of Excel into the technical use of it. Is knowing how to do those will be extremely helpful, because it will help you understand the concept of pivot tables in different platforms, and how to look up different things based off of an index or something like that.
So
Excel. Great way to, absolutely. And there's
started.
So much you can do with Excel.
True.
There's so much you can do with it.
True.
Replacing different characters. A lot of things that you can do with Excel, the general concept, you'll end up doing in a different platform.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Like, you have to start at the foundation, right? I think like what I say it too sometimes, right? A database, right? Excel, right? It's really Excel it's a spreadsheet, right? But if there's a lot of spreadsheets, we have to put it in a database, right? When there's a lot of data, we have to put it in a database. But
believe it or not, I taught my son Excel, and we started out by learning Vegan Code, A1, C2, and from that, when I ended up teaching them chess. And we reference, you know how we reference bingo in order to learn Excel? Well, we reference Excel in order to learn chess, because the chessboard is divided up into ranks and columns. And so, make a long story short, yes, anybody can learn Excel.
Yeah.
Learning how far you want to
it's learning. It's how deep you go with the tool, right? It's like anything. It's like anything. If you want to learn SQL, right, you can learn a little bit and do basic things, but the more you go into it, the more powerful you can be, right? Like it's Excel, right? How you might think a spreadsheet's not, you think everyone knows Excel, but that's not true. Like a lot of people even say they know it, but really when you give them a data case study to do, they can't really solve all the things in a case study in Excel. And it's pretty, it's pretty powerful if you sort of, so.
Yeah, I believe one of your one of your earlier podcasts, I think it was the second one, the lady on the podcast spoke about like the importance of knowing the type of issue you want to resolve. Yes, that's very good for those who are like computer science majors or something like that, because you have that background, you have the math background, you have the database, you're forced to take certain classes, so you're coming out. But for those people with non-traditional backgrounds like me, who majored in communications and writing.
But you love numbers. You love numbers.
Yes, but there's a lot of non-traditional people out there who wants to pivot into data analytics. Yeah. So yes, normally I would tell somebody within this industry to a totally different approach, but specifically for those listeners with non-traditional backgrounds, Excel is the route to go.
Yeah, it's. I like how you approach that too. It's like you want to, it's good to learn a lot of technologies, but if you're not good at using them, right, you just hit the baseline of everything, it doesn't really help you do anything, and rather like, if you pick one tool and you know how to use it really well and you could do basically everything with it,
Yes. And that's huge, because the things that you do in one tool, you'll end up doing another tool. They'll just have different terminology, or they'll have different aspects to it, but the basis of it that's the same. If you see some text and you want to make it all uppercase, a lot of platforms do that. They do it differently. So if you learn, I totally agree with you. If you learn one tool very well, you'll think about that tool as you're learning another tool. That's what I'm doing with Click. Now that I use Click more than Tableau. I'm referencing Tableau, say, okay, how would I do this in Tableau? But this is how I'm doing it in Click.
Yeah, that's good. Like, it's the same thing. I was just thinking, like, if you find and replace, right? You could do it in Excel. You could do it in SQL. You could do it in Tableau. It's the same. But choose, like, honestly, I don't think employers, sure, like some employers care enough, right? Like, for sure, SQL might be a big way, right? You have to extract and get the data, right? But some technologies, they don't care what you're using, as long as you could data clean, right? You can manipulate the data. You could somehow visualize the data. You could communicate that data. Like, bam, who cares? Who cares you use that or use this? Like, yeah. So, but, yep, cool. Thank you, Toby. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Yeah. So for all the viewers, if they looking for extra mentorship, you could reach out to Toby.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I have a finite amount of time, but I think that one of the things that I would take heed to is building a bigger online presence and doing more blogging, and maybe taking your following you, and maybe even doing a vlog, so that I can reach more people.
Yeah, for sure. But at least the selected ones who write really good LinkedIn messages, you will help them out.
Yes,
will help them out. Yeah. Thank you, Toby. I appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Reach out whenever.
Yep. Take care. All right.
You do the same.
All right. Bye.